opportunity, all about jobs, all about international trade in our future, with a great near-term benefit also.
And I've got 4 legislators over here that are excited to work on that bridge project, because that is going to be interesting in the House and Senate. I can't wait to see how this one comes out. All right, let's talk about what you're going to do tomorrow. The governor has designed a series of special messages. We have already heard some of them. And tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken, you are going to talk about health and wellness. And this is something that will impact everybody to some degree. There are a lot of different components to it. I was talking to your folks, and they were kind enough to give me a little bit of a heads up about some of this. One of the things that you're going to talk about is call for the Department of Community Health to somehow be able to change the My Choice program that would allow for seniors, and many of us deal with parents or grandparents who are going to need that kind of care, and this would give this My Choice a little bit more flexibility. Just one of a number of things you're going to talk about tomorrow. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Sure. My Choices in terms of reforming or enhancing the program is a great opportunity, because I went through this with my own parents in terms of understanding the difficulties and the challenges for someone you love so dearly. We have an environment that too often today sort of pushes people into nursing care. And currently we have a program actually that gives priority to getting people out of nursing care over even keeping people in their home to begin with. That's backward. The priorities we need to give are figuring out how we can give tools and resources and a situation where we can help people stay in their homes or stay in an environment where they're near family and friends and have the right support structures, at the same time making sure the system doesn't get abused. So we need to create an environment like that, enhance that environment over what we have today. And I think that's really important, and I view that really as just a common sense opportunity. The message tomorrow is really important, because if you think about it, if you don't have health and wellness, how are you going to hold a job? How are you going to have fun? How are you going to be able to enjoy your kids and grandkids? And we do a really rotten job at our health and wellness in this country and in the state. And I'll give you an easy illustration. Is one of the main messages that strikes a chord to me is just wellness. The biggest single thing we can do is take more responsibility for our own health. And to show you I believe in this, you're going to hopefully find some entertainment value tomorrow. Is I'm putting me out there to say, hopefully the camera shot's okay, there's a few pounds that need to be lost right here. And then I'm happy to participate and say, I'll put out a challenge as to how much weight I have to lose. And to say, can't some of us do this together about being healthier? Because if we all did a certain set of behaviors that we can all understand, and we measured it in a certain way, and we all won because we achieved those results, we could drop our healthcare costs in this country by more than 50%. That's without even touching the healthcare system itself. We should go do that.
All right, Governor, we have had a very patient audience here. We have tried to steer through some of the big issues that we have identified by looking at social media and elsewhere. I know we have another couple of subjects, but Brian, I'm going to do something here for just a second. I know you really have been patient. Does somebody have a question on a subject, who hasn't already asked a question, by the way, that we haven't talked about? Brian, take your pick.
Hi, my question to you, Governor Snyder, is Michigan has lost thousands of jobs over the past 10 years due to the onerous business climate and the rules and regulations. It's a proven fact that many right-to-work states have a more robust economy. They have people waiting to get in. They have a higher disposable income. If you're really interested in fixing Michigan, as you say, would you consider right to work as one of the ways to fix that problem?
Well, I appreciate your question, but what I'll tell you is I don't put right to work on my agenda of the highest priorities we need to address. And why do I say that? Because just think about for a moment when you heard the words right to work. Whether you're in favor of right to work or against right to work, I bet thoughts were going through your mind of a very visceral reaction. And quite often, it's either very positive or very negative and very passionate. So if we made right to work a key issue in the state, what most likely would happen is nothing would get done. We also happened in Wisconsin. That was not constructive. That was not relentless positive action. And so my view is we shouldn't go to divisive issues. We should go to issues that we know exist right in front of us that can make a huge difference in our lives. So I don't dismiss the issue. I appreciate your perspective. But if you look at, there are so many other things that we can work on. Again, tax reform, budget reform, education reform, local government reform, health and wellness, infrastructure, talent. And the list goes on. Public safety I mentioned, it's going to be on the list. It's very important. Energy and environment. There are so many things, there is common ground. And there are ways for us to win together and start changing that culture. Because a big part of this model is the biggest single problem we have in the state of Michigan is us. It's our culture. We've been beaten up for so many years. We got too negative. We got too down on ourselves. We spent too much time looking at, hey, these were the good old times. Can we go back to that? And we spent way too much time fighting with one another. That's not Michigan's future. And I've said this from day one on the campaign trail. Michigan's future is about being positive, about being forward-looking, about being inclusive, and recognizing the solution is not fighting over a shrinking pie, but growing the pie and winning together. So before we get to any divisiveness, let's focus on the things where we can make a great difference, jobs and our kids.
Well, it just so happens the next question I was going to ask about was immigration. And that can be a pretty divisive issue, but let's talk about it in a couple of ways. You have talked about how important it is to attract good talent from around the globe to try to get them to come and stay in Michigan because we need that brain power, keeping the brain power that's here and getting others. So there is that aspect. But there are other people who have questions about it. Brian, you have somebody?
Carlos Sanchez is the Executive Director of the West Michigan Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. You are interested, obviously, in immigration. We have seen what happened out west, and you have concerns about that as well. That law that was passed in Arizona, if something like that could happen here.
Correct. Governor, welcome to Grand Rapids, first of all. Yeah, you've addressed the issue of inclusiveness and also the fact that we need everybody to get to work and create a good environment for everybody. Bills like the one that it was just introduced, that mirrors the one in Arizona, creates that environment, that negative environment in some of our population that prohibits them to go out and get a decent job or go to their jobs. What is your take on that?
Yeah, I don't support that legislation. And the reason I say that is a couple reasons. People take immigration and sort of lump it all together. And the issue is you have to break it down. There is an issue in our country of illegal immigration. And it's an important issue. But if you look at it, it's clearly a federal issue. The federal government is responsible for it. They have not done a good job. We need to encourage them to come up with a good long-term solution on the illegal immigration question. My personal view is I embrace legal immigration. I think we should be encouraging that in our state, and that's one of the entrepreneurial opportunities we have for real success. Because if you think about it, if you look at particularly people with advanced degrees, they're coming to college here already. We're educating them. And then we're having them go away? Aren't these the people we want to be creating companies right here? Because what you'll tell you, and there is a lot of data out there. If you take the time to do the research, you'll find they're net job creators. They're not, a PhD in engineering is not taking jobs away from someone. Most likely they're joining a company that then's going to grow and say they need to build a building. So the building trades have work then. They need people to work in that plant then, and those people have a job. These are net job creators. And the other part that's interesting is people forget where we come from. They forget our history. And it's important. What made America great? The Statue of Liberty, the whole philosophy. And the funny part is we forget, because if I mention some names, Dow, a company called Masco that makes Delta faucets and everything, Myers. How many people remember Myers was started by an immigrant? That's what helped build us. So we shouldn't walk away from it. We need to embrace it in a constructive way. And in particular, for the Hispanic community, one illustration I would give is in Metro Detroit. If you look at the city of Detroit, for all their troubles, if you look over the last decade, there are some bright lights. And one of the bright lights within the city of Detroit has been Mexican Town. In terms of good commerce, an area where people want to go that live outside the city. They want to go visit. They want the experience. So we should be embracing our diversity of ethnic backgrounds and celebrating that and making it a power rather than something that divides us.
We are going to run out of time rapidly. Somebody got a question about a subject that we haven't covered. Brian, let's ask Wendy to stand up.
Hi, thank you for being here tonight. I represent the UAW Local 6000, and my question for you would go back to your being inclusive. The state workers have come up with meaningful solutions for cutting costs and saving over $170 million, as noted in the new solutions recommendations. This involves reduction in managers and a 10% cut in private contracting. Is there a reason why you're not honoring these recommendations?
Well, the new solutions report, I actually have read it, and there are good pieces in it. So I agree with the general direction. In terms of believing they can achieve all those results, I find some of that challenging. But with respect to the question, I'm happy to look at, and I've actually shared that with your union leadership. I'm happy to look at the management structure question and the relationship to the number of managers. I'm happy to look at private contracting to say, are there better ways and more efficient ways to do that? I believe there are. But I believe we all need to be part of the process, and we do need to look at some long-term reforms for our workforce. Again, with looking at the long-term picture, hopefully not people's salaries and wages, but to say, do we need to look at reform on health care costs? The answer is yes, to be comparable with the private sector. Do we need to look at defined contribution versus defined benefit plans to say there's long-term pension reform so we can have an affordable system so we can all win? We need to look at that too. So it's not just one side or the other, it's about us working together. About employees working with management, about us all coming up with a solution, because my goal is to get the difficult times behind us, because too often we are arguing about these issues. I want to get to the point of how do I empower state employees, because there's so many good ideas. There's so many ways. We've got great hardworking people that are the victims of bureaucracy themselves. And how do we get the dumb reports and the dumb requirements out of your way so you can provide better customer service to our customers, our citizens?
Governor, we're going to ask for another question from over here. That just pick one to your left. A subject that we haven't covered, please.
Yes, my name is Willis Wyman. I'm from Holland, Michigan. The question I have, Governor, what educational programs are going to be available for individuals losing Medicaid through the new eligibility lifetime limit?
Well, the first thing is Medicaid is not changing. I mean, that's what we're doing are changing cash assistance payments in terms of looking at that. And to give you a little background is in Michigan, largely, we didn't apply any time limits. That's still an interesting question of why that didn't happen for cash assistance. So there are still other programs like Bridge Cards, SNAP, other programs, but the cash assistance piece is Michigan didn't apply any limits largely. The federal government has had a 5-year lifetime cap for quite some time. We actually, working with the legislature, are talking about, we're putting in a 4-year limit. I signed that bill. Now the question is that program was never designed to be a permanent program, to give lifetime assistance, cash assistance to people that are not disabled. There are carve-outs that if you're disabled, you can stay on the program. But if you're able-bodied and able to work, there was some time limit that actually goes back to President Clinton, who put in the program. And it had a 5-year cap. We put in a 4-year cap. It affects about 11,000 families, which I don't take lightly, because we are affecting 11,000 families. But what I can tell you is about 20% of those families have been on cash assistance for more than 10 years. 57% of those families have been on cash assistance for more than 7 years. Now, the choice here is not to leave them on, but to put in programs as you were saying. And we're working hard on that, about giving them priority programs for jobs to help get them employed. Because the solution is not to leave people on cash assistance in perpetuity. I don't think anyone really supports that model. We need to get them employed, and we're working hard on that. Of the 11,000 families we called, we tried to contact all 11,000. Only 1,000 asked for help finding a job. 1,000 cases. 2,000 cases actually said they didn't want any help. And then there's a group in the middle. So we've reached out. We're reaching out hard to contact every one of those cases, every one of those families, because they're real people, and try to work with them to help them. But it's been interesting to see. There are people we really do need to help. And then there are some of those groups don't seem to really care. And we still have supplemental programs, again, food assistance and other programs for people in need even after those benefits run out.
All right, I need a really short question and an equally short answer. Governor, call on somebody.
This gentleman right here.
All right. Quickly, please, sir.
Yes, you were talking about the right-to-work model. I just wanted to see how that's going to be applied, if that's being applied to teachers across the state of Michigan.
Yeah, well, again, I don't have right to work on my agenda, and I've been fairly clear about that, and I don't really want to work on the issue. I think there are higher priorities, and that's why I'm talking about health and wellness, I'm talking about infrastructure, I'm talking about talent. We have a legislature that I respect them, and as part of the process, they may propose things, but again, hopefully they know how I feel about it, and we're going to work through this in a positive fashion.
Ladies and gentlemen, you have been extremely patient, and I appreciate all of your questions and your thoughtfulness. Legislators, thank you for being here. Thank all of our visitors at home for being here, all of the social media folks, but particularly to you, Governor Snyder, because you came here with no preconditions. You didn't know what these questions were going to be. I didn't know what they were going to be. We didn't know what was going to be asked, and you were willing to come and do this. We appreciate that. I would give you about 60 seconds to speak to the audience both here and at home to wrap this up, and then we'll come back and finish out the show.
Well, thank you, Rick, and thanks to all of you, because I really appreciate that. The opportunity to be here with you, because it is important, because too often you get filtered information. And that's why I really enjoy this opportunity to talk, because hopefully it's given you a different perspective to see that the focus here is we do need to reinvent our state. And to do that, we have to do some really tough things. And the important thing to remember about human nature is everyone likes change until it affects you. And then it's not such a good idea. But the key here is Michigan was broken. We are going to become a great state again. And we're going to be a role model in leading with things like relentless positive action, about solving problems, about creating a new culture. And the only way to do that is for us all to come together. And that's why I like this opportunity, is to talk about it, because it's not about me, it's not about you. Again, it's about we. So let's get fired up. Let's get excited about the good things we can do in the state and just get them done. And we will stand out, and we will create more and better jobs, and we will create that environment for our kids to have a bright future too. So thank you so much for the opportunity to share. It's been great, and hopefully you'll have me back sometime.
Well, we can do it again next week if you're available. You know, there are so many things that have already happened in the first 8 months of this new administration with new members in the Senate and in the House. There has been such a huge amount of activity in Lansing, and for those of us who cover it on a regular basis, it really does create a different environment. As a reporter, you make no judgment about policy. But as an observer, I can tell you that all of this mass of new information and change that has come to Lansing has had a significant impact on that city. And now, as the legislators are heading back after getting an earful from constituents all summer long, there's still a lot of heavy lifting to do. And you'll be hearing from all of these folks and a lot of their colleagues as we move forward. We'll also continue our commitment here to make sure that your views are heard in Lansing, not just by the legislature and the governor, but by everybody who will listen, because tonight you have shown your willingness to send us hundreds of emails and a lot of folks who have been with us on Cover It Live. We thank you for being there. To this studio audience who has been oh so patient, time's almost up. We thank you so much for being here with us. Thank you for answering the call when we reached out to get a broad cross-section of West Michigan. It is very important to us. Governor, thank you for your willingness, and on behalf of all the folks who worked behind the scenes and did such an excellent job tonight, thank you to all of our viewers. Thanks for joining us, and we'll be right back here again when the important information needs to be discussed.